Okay, here we go. Shh, listen up. Okay, so a quick review. These are things that you should know. You should know that the coordinate plane is divided up into 4 quadrants. They go counterclockwise. So you see that you have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are Roman numerals. Yes? In quadrant 1, and I know that the copy wasn't very good because this was light blue. In quadrant 1, both x and y are positive. That's what that says. In quadrant 2, x is negative, and that makes sense because I'm talking about numbers on the left side of the x-axis, and y is positive. In quadrant 3, x and y are both negative. X and y are both negative. And in quadrant 4, x is positive and y is negative. You guys should know how to name ordered pairs. We did that. We even did a Desmos activity and a coordinate grid like puzzle. So you guys should definitely know how to do that. So I'm not spending any more time on that. Okay. Okay. So we are going to do a couple of these. We're not doing all of these because I think that's silly. So, Kellen, you have A, Kane B, Daniel C, Brody D, Eli E, Corbett, you have G. You can do another one. So, I don't know. So, Kellen, point A, what is it? Yeah, point A is the ordered pair -2, 3. Kane, you have B. Yeah, it's the ordered pair 5, 2. Daniel, you have C. So we say the X first, right? So 0, -7. Right on, sir. D, Brody. Yeah, -4, -5. Good job, sir. I did. Thank you, ma'am. E, Eli. Yeah, negative. How about +3, -3? +3, -3. G, Corbett. How about X first? Good job. -8, 0. Okay. All right, Dakota, you have A. Gavin, H, you have B. Aiden, you have C. Amira, you have D. Kate, you have E. Abby, you have G. Ready, go. Dakota. I just want the quadrant. It says which quadrant contains the following points. Quadrant 2. Good job. Okay, Harper. Quadrant 1. Good job. Aiden. Is C in a quadrant? What quadrant is C in? Isn't it on the what? It's on the y-axis. That was tricky. Amira, D. Yep, quadrant 3. E. Quadrant E. I mean, what quadrant is E in? 4. And Abby, G. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to do the graphing and then I'll come back to, we're starting with Naya for the next round. So graph the point 7, 10. That's, and label it H. And then we're going to graph the point -5, 12. So it's going to have to go off your graph and call that J. I'm going to slide down because it's on the ceiling. Okay. And then the last point is -1, -8, and we're going to call that K. We are using it tomorrow. Okay. Totally serious. Okay. Does everybody understand how to do that? No questions? Okay. All right. So we're going to find the distance between points on the coordinate plane. So if you have a horizontal line, you just count the difference, or a vertical line, right? You just count the difference between the points. But if it's not horizontal or vertical, you can use the distance formula or Pythagorean theorem. However, we haven't learned that yet. We'll learn that tomorrow. So today we're going to use the distance formula. So let's talk about the distance formula. So the distance formula is, and I never write it like this. The distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1, the quantity squared, plus y2 minus y1, the quantity squared. But I never write it like that. So you're going to see that when I do it, I don't write it like that. Here's how I write it, and I want to tell you why. When you guys learned slope, what did you do first? Y2 minus, y2 minus y1, and then I square that plus x2 minus x1, and I square that. It's the same thing because you have some quantity squared plus another quantity. So like 3 plus 5 is the same thing as 5 plus 3. The reason I do that is because I just kind of reinforce slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm using that same order. My brain is trained to do y2 minus y1 first. Does that make sense? You're still going to get the same result. I don't care which way you do it. I just want you to know that that's how I do it. So if I messed you up, I apologize. So we're using these 2 points, x1 and y1, x2 and y2. So the distance from R to T, I'm going to start with y2, which is 1, minus y1, which is 2, and I'm going to square that, plus x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 5, and I'm going to square that. So let's see, 1 minus 2 is negative 1 squared, plus 4 minus 5 is negative 1, and I have to square that. Have I done anything that we don't understand? Yes. Okay, what did I do that confused you? Okay, so 1 minus 2. So I need to figure out what negative 1 squared is. So negative 1 times negative 1 is what? Positive 1. So negative 1 squared again is also a positive 1. So now I'm just going to do that math underneath the radical. So that says the square root of, well, what is 1 plus 1? It's 2. So does everyone, and it says round your answer to the nearest tenth, right? So does everyone know how to use the square root button in your calculator? It's the second, and then it's right above the x squared function. Second, and it's right above x squared. So what is the square root of 2? Here. What is the square root of 2? It's 1.4. Notice that I use squiggly equals. What does that mean? About. Good job, Corbett. That's about. I'm going to graph these 2 points just so you can see what we did. They're really close together. So 5, 2 is right here, and 4, 1 is right here. This is T and R. So it's just saying that this measurement right there, teeny tiny, is about 1.4. That's what that's saying, okay? The next one is a little bit farther apart so you get a better idea. Are we okay with that? Okay. So example 2, let's go ahead and I'm going to graph them first. So I'm going to graph point P at negative 3, negative 5. There's P. And Q is at negative 4, 6. So I'm trying to find, I'm going to mess this up probably. I'm trying to find this distance. I know that's a horrible line. That's what I'm trying to find, how long that line is. Okay. So I'm going to write out the formula that I use. So I do y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared plus x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared. Because that's how my brain sets it up. Just like I'm kind of doing slope. So what is, and I'll label these x1, y1, x2, y sub 2. I'll slide it down so you guys can see that. I don't know if you guys still need to label your points or not, but it might help. Okay, so 6 minus a negative 5. What happens when I have minus a negative? Turns into a great big positive. Dakota, you go get water whenever you need it. Okay. Okay. X sub 2 is negative 4 minus a negative 3, which comes a big plus, quantity squared. So what is 6 plus 5? 11. So I have 11 squared plus, what is -4 plus 3? -1. Quantity squared. Gavin Harper. Why am I putting -1 in a parenthesis but not 11? Am I just like to be difficult?
11's not negative.
11's not negative. When I raise a negative number to a power, I have to put it in a parenthesis. Have to put it in parentheses. So someone tell me what 11 squared is plus 1 squared. What is 11 squared plus -1 squared? Sorry, 11 squared plus parenthesis -1 quantity squared. What do we get in our calculator? 11 squared plus parenthesis -1. Close my parenthesis squared. 122. Good job. So what is the square root of 122 about? It's about what? Yeah, it's about 11.0. I think it's 11.04, isn't it? Something like that. Okay. How are we feeling about this? Sir. So on your calculator, you have to hit the second button. Do you see that blue second button? And then right above x squared, you see a symbol that looks like this. And you know why that is, Corbett? It's because the square root is the inverse of x squared. That's why it's right above it. Okay? So for the answer, you use that symbol and then you put 122 inside of it. What do you have for me, Daniel? Do you? Okay. Okay. Listen. When two segments have the same length, they're congruent. So the way that we say two segments are congruent, like if segment AB, so if the measure of segment AB equals the measure of segment BC, we say that segment AB is congruent to segment BC. Now, you guys aren't going to use that at all, but I want you to know what this means because, guys, knock it off. Because you might have this given to you and you might be given the measurement of BC, so you know that the measurement of AB is the same. So I just want you to know that that little squiggly, like the equal sign with the squiggle over the top, means congruent. Isn't that the tilde sign in Spanish, that little squiggle? Spanish tilde? Have you guys taken Spanish? Okay, never mind. Congruent. Yes, this means congruent. God bless you. Don't you guys have to take like 3 years of Spanish? How many years of a foreign language? What? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, here we go. Listen up. So we're not going to do midpoint on a number line because that's very basic. You don't need that. We're going to go right here to midpoint on a coordinate plane. So remember, a coordinate plane is like the XY axes, right? Yes. Are you just going to go to the office or stand out in the hallway? Okay. So when you want to find the midpoint is like the average of the two spaces, right? Here, let's have Antoine stand up for me. Just anywhere. Gavin Kane, stand up. Please and thank you. Don't stand next to Antoine. Move away from him. You're not friends. Go away. Okay. All right. So from Gavin to Antoine, I would say that the desk right in between Aiden and Gavin Harper is the midpoint. We're just finding the average, the distance between them and cutting it in half, right? When you take two numbers and add them together and then divide by 2, that's called the average, right? Do you guys remember calculating average? So that's what the midpoint is. You're finding the average of their numbers. So the midpoint is we're going to take the x1 plus the x2 and divide it by 2. You guys can go sit back down. And then the y1 plus the y2 and divide it by 2. So the midpoint of two ordered pairs is also and ordered pair. That makes sense. So I'm going to label my points and then I'm going to graph them. So this is X1 and Y1, X2 and Y2. And I'm going to plot my points. So Q is the point 3, 5. And S is the point 7, -9. And I'm going to try and connect these with a nice straight line. So what I'm trying to find is the part, like I'm trying to find the point that's right in the middle of that line. Like I'm trying to find the middle spot. So if we were to look at it, like if we were just looking at this, what do you think the middle is? About. You think it's what? 5.2? Okay, let's check that. I think that's probably a pretty good guess. So we're going to take the X coordinates from both ordered pairs and add them together. So we identify the midpoint as capital M. So X1 is 3 plus X2 is 7 over 2. It's not 1 o'clock yet, right? Mrs. Bischoff. I did. I'm sorry. She said you needed to call it tomorrow. I'm sorry. Thank you, ma'am. Bye. Okay. And then Y1 and Y2, I'm going to add those two together. Y1 plus Y2. So 5 plus a -9, which is the same thing as 5 minus 9. So what is 3 plus 7? So 10 over 2. And what is 5 and -9? -4 over 2. Can I simplify those? Yes, I can. 10 divided by 2 is, and -4 divided by 2 is, isn't that what you guys chose? Okay. Awesome. Okay. Does that make sense? Wait for everyone to get that down, and then we're going to do it again. That's all right. I'll take the 0. Okay. So let's do it again. You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to plot the points first. Let's see. -2, 12 is point C. And 10, -1, 2, 3, 4 is point D. There's no way I'm going to be able to connect those nicely. Okay. So someone go up there and put an X or whatever where you think, go ahead, Antoine, where you think the midpoint is. You're fine. Relax. Just about. Where do you think the midpoint is about? Just guesstimate it. Okay, let's check. So remember, we're going to take X1 plus X2 and divide it by 2. So -2 plus 10 divided by 2 and 12 minus 4 divided by 2. Okay. So -2 plus 10 is what? I'm not going to wait for you guys if you're not going to follow along with the notes. It's 8. So I have 8 over 2. And 12 minus 4 is 8. So I have 8 over 2. Does that reduce? 2, 4, 4. So our midpoint is right there. Perfect. Okay. Is this making sense? Do you have a better understanding of what the middle is now, the midpoint? Okay. All right. So I just need to show you this. Do you still need that? I'll go up there and erase it. Does everyone have that written down? So the next two examples, sometimes you're given 1 point and the midpoint, and you have to find the other segment, like the other point, right? So instead of being given the 2 endpoints of the segment, You're going to be given one endpoint and the midpoint, and you have to find the other endpoint. So that's what we're going to do next. Sir.
So if you're given the endpoint and the midpoint,
Uh-huh.
what if you were to take the distance from the midpoint to the endpoint and just add it to the opposite side?
Yeah, but that would be really hard. Like, why would you do the distance if there's a way easier way? Yeah. I promise you there's a much easier way. Okay. But that's a good thought. Here we go. So I'm going to sketch out what we have here. We are given the endpoint -3, -2. This is point A, way down here. Okay. We know that the midpoint, that capital M, is the ordered pair 3, 4. So this is what I know. I know that that other segment is going to go off in this direction. I just don't know where it's going to stop, right? That's what I need to find. So here's how we do this. We know that A is the ordered pair -3, -2. And we're going to call B X2, Y2. All right. We're going to set up like we're trying to find the midpoint, but we know what the midpoint is. We know that the midpoint is 3, 4. So 3, 4 equals X1 plus X2 over 2 and Y1 plus Y2 over 2. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. Why doesn't it make sense, Gavin? You don't like it? It's way easier than what you're thinking. Okay. So those fractions are going to go away instantly. Look, they aren't even real fractions. So let's look at this. I know that this has to be equal to what? Has to be equal to 3. And I know that, that this right here has to be equal to 4 because when I add those two together, I would get the X coordinate or the Y coordinate. So let's look at them independently for a second. I have 3 equals -3 plus X2 divided by 2. I'm trying to solve for that variable. How do I get rid of the fraction, Antoine? How do I get rid of the divide by 2? What is the opposite of divide? What? Multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply this side by 2 over 1, and I'm going to multiply this side by 2. And I do that, so I just end up with something that says 6 equals -3 plus X2. Remember that X sub 2 is just a variable term. How do I get X sub 2 all by itself? I add 3 to both sides. So when I think of the B coordinate, that first term, X, is going to be 6 plus 3 is 9. So now let's figure out what the Y coordinate is. Okay. So I know that 4 has to equal -2 plus Y sub 2 over 2. The only way to get rid of that divide by 2 is to do what? Multiply both sides by 2. The denominators cancel out. So I really have 8 equals -2 plus the Y coordinate. How do I figure out what the Y coordinate is? Trying to get the Y coordinate all by itself. Add 2 to both sides. 8 plus 2 is 10. So I know that the other end point is at 9, 10. So I'm going to graph it really fast right there. B. Dakota, I'm sorry. I should have given you a little Post-it note or something. I apologize. So we know that we're going to have to multiply both sides by what? 2. Why don't we just do it at the very beginning? Let's make it easier. Okay, so let's do the next one like that and see if you guys think it's easier. Does everyone have this written down? Okay. Dakota, I'll give you my notes in a hot second. Okay. So I know that the midpoint, M, is the point 4, -6. And that has to equal x1, which is 2, right? This coordinate, plus, we don't know what x sub 2 is, divided by 2. And the y coordinate, -3, plus y sub 2 over 2. I want to just go ahead and get rid of those fractions right off the bat. So can't I just multiply everything on this side by 2 and everything over here by 2? So God bless you. 2 times 4 is 8. And 2 times -6 is, so 8 -12 has to equal 2 plus x sub 2 and -3 plus x sub 2. Do you guys see what we did? Now remember that this has to equal this, and this has to equal this. So let's just solve that really fast. And you're going to get so quick at it that you're going to be able to do it in your brain. 8 equals 2 plus the x sub 2, and -12 equals the -3 plus y sub 2. Someone tell me what the x coordinate is. What should I do? If I wanted to find the x coordinate, what would I do? -2 on both sides. So what does the x coordinate equal? Yep. So I'm going to put that in my ordered pair. If I wanted to find the y coordinate, what would I do? Add 3 on both sides. -12 plus 3 is, so that's my ordered pair. So let's graph them. So let's see. X is the point 2, -1, 2, 3. This is where X lives. My midpoint is the ordered pair 4, -6. And I said that the last point, Y, is the ordered pair 6, -9. And I think that that probably looks really good. So I'm going to show you one more thing that may be helpful. If I were to just look at the X coordinate and the midpoint, what did you guys learn how to do early on when you were given 2 points? Count what? Count the slope. So the difference from X to the midpoint is down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2. So if this is the middle, can't I just repeat that to find the other end? Down 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2. That's the cheat. Does that make sense? Way easier than using the distance formula or even the midpoint formula. You can actually count the slope. Okay. So that works if you have a graph. If you don't have a graph, you might need a graph. Okay. All right. So let's look at our homework. It's going to be fast. So your homework, do you guys see your pages? So you have page, mine aren't numbered. Hang on. Page, yes, page 20, 21, and 22. Pages 20, 21, and 22. So on page, let's see, all you're doing is finding the distance on number 9 and number 10. Here, let's go. I'm going to do this. I'm going to cross off under part 2. I'm going to cross this one off, number 6. And under the distance formula, I'm going to cross off number 8. You can just do the distance of 1 point. That's fine. Number 6 and number 8 on page 21. Cross off number 6 and number 8 on page 21. And you can get rid of number 2 on the front. So you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions. Okay. No interactive practice. Got it? Get busy. Yes, you can listen to music. Yes, you can use the restroom. Yes, you can go to the restroom after Brody does. Okay. Shh. Yes. What do you have, sir? Wait, let me stop.